afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is The Wizard and the Priestess. My name is Nuala and my wizard friend is...
Nat. I'm going to say good morning in case you're listening to this in the morning. Yin yang. It's all about balance.
Welcome.
Great to see you.
Great to see you. We are moving into our next episode on this series of creating new life.
So we spoke about preconception.
We did. And today we are going to talk about pregnancy. So first of all, we want to jump into what it is to be consciously conceive.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything to say, Matt?
So last time we spoke about all the things that need to be in place. A woman as it can currently happen. God knows what's going to happen with drugs and science and whatnot going forward.
Doesn't matter.
So all those things need to be in place. And you were saying that can take... So from going backwards from birth, pregnancy, conception, that can take 2 years for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So to be doing that consciously, it requires you to be in touch with you. It requires you to be in touch with the other person. It also requires you to know you and to know them and the relationship, how to take care of yourself, how to take care of the relationship, and start prepping yourself, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, if you want to get into that today, but to take on another life.
Yeah, so we're currently pregnant.
Yeah.
So
we have a little...
We have done that. There is something nestled in the womb now.
Okay.
From that moment.
Mm-hmm.
We have conceived. Hang on, sorry.
We have conceived.
Not me and you, but I'm talking about the process. No, I actually, sorry, I cut you off there because I was like, where are you going? But now I realise that we had to do all those things. And then now we're...
So now we're in the first trimester.
No, we're not there yet. So we've consciously conceived. So I just want to touch on conception.
Okay.
So conception is obviously a blip in moment. It's the Big Bang.
Yep.
So I just want to touch on that.
Okay.
So when the Big Bang occurs, when the mother has got herself sorted in a way that is conducive to life, and a father has got himself sorted and ready in a way, they have their soups of all the pieces of their puzzle that they've put together thus far in this moment in time. And they love each other so much that they need to share that love.
Wise words.
With the world. So wise. And so that is essentially the precipice of conception or conscious conception, where we are aware enough that it is the love with which we have for each other and that honour and endearment and respect for life that actually can catapult life into creation. And I think that's what we need to focus on prior to. Now when we do the deed consciously, it's not necessarily about the position you're in or anything like that, but it's more about it is important that more love is sparked. Orgasm is one of the most potent things to occur for conception to occur. And if you are having sex currently where you are not orgasming, well, there's a block or a disconnect occurring. And that is blocking real love from coming in. And so being really conscious of ensuring that not only he orgasms, but you orgasm as the female orgasms as well. And so that also has a huge interplay of deeply connecting to each other and bringing that love together. So conception occurs in the blink of an eye. And so as like we can get real physiological, but I'm not keen for that right now. We're just going to stay in this place where we want to be really conscious about bringing our soups together, really looking at each other and going, you know what, I love you enough to want to pour into the new cup of life.
But yeah, it's do I want to do this? I want to do this journey with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the children journey doesn't end. Like you don't get to make a baby and then it end.
No.
It goes on forever. And that it really is that. I know I called it cute last time, and Matt's a bit slightly hurt that I called his wise words cute.
It was rugged and sexy.
Was it rugged and sexy? I don't think it was more. It was more just that it is a really beautiful and perfect depiction of what is important. It is really important that you can look over at your partner's soup and go, yeah, you know what? I'm keen to create a baby soup.
Baby soup.
Of all of your bad shit bits, all your shadow that you haven't worked through, all the light in you. And I look at my own soup and wonder, like, you know, like, should I, shouldn't I? Ooh, have I done enough thus far to actually be willing to pour this in together? Like, am I happy with that? And if you're not happy with who you are right now, well, then I can assure you the baby that comes out at the end is going to treagle the shit out of you. So, yeah, that is what I believe conscious conception is all about. Now we can go into ritual, we can go into connection, we can go into tantra, we can go into all the layers and opportunity that is available. We're not obviously going to. So we'll just stick to my soup analogy here. We need to love what's in his soup as much as we love what's in her soup, and we must really be ready for what's going to come. Now, conception's happened. There's been that deep connection, whether or not it was in a way that what I'm talking about, whether or not it was conscious, there would be an aspect. I don't believe that life comes in unless there is an aspect of that.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
There has to be something in that moment it's like all the cogs were in alignment to allow that soup to actually come in together, for life to actually go, yes, this is it. It is very complex, but very simple. And so I think we need to get out of our heads and follow our hearts. Yeah. And that is massive in terms of conception.
And I think, as I spoke about the soul contract thing, where you pick your parents. So regardless of kind of where your parents are at, you still pick them.
Yeah.
For one reason or another, which hopefully turns out to be conscious while you're incarnate here on Earth. And, you know, there's a reason everything happens.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the bigger truth of things.
Yeah.
Not being a victim and I was born this way and grew up like this. There's always a bigger truth.
Yeah, and that just really triggered something in my mind about you are here on purpose. You didn't just happen to be.
No.
You chose this moment in time.
Yeah, there's no accidents.
No.
And that if there's an accident, it implies there's been a mistake.
Yeah.
Your parents might not consciously realise it, but they would have asked for it on a deeper level.
Some deeper level.
Yeah.
Or you asked for it and they were actually available.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're pregnant. So when we look at pregnancy we can look at it from different perspectives. Now, when I think of pregnancy, for me personally and for me as a clinician, I see that there are there's many different avenues. There's sort of two different avenues essentially you can go down, because the minute you fall pregnant or you like incarnate, create life or receive life, shall we say, when that happens, your brain goes, oh gosh, okay, what do I do? And so what I see in the clinic is two options. One way is to go down what I would call the medical system route of pregnancy, or you have the ancestral system. And so these two systems are set up or are available. And one of them feeds you information and one of them invites you to inform yourself.
Okay. I think I know which one, but for the listeners.
So in your registered system, you would have people that you reach to outside of yourself for information.
So is that the doctor, the obstetrician?
Midwife, home midwife, registered birth worker, essentially. Anyone that works in birth that is registered under some sort of umbrella that holds them to a specific way of things to be.
Yeah.
Then you have the ancestral system of care, which is all about introspection. It's all about going back into yourself, always asking inwards first. There's places to reach would be someone like, that would be where you have the grandmother, the familial supports.
So like the wise elders.
The wise elders. Yeah. Also these days we have people then the doulas and then the birth keepers. And they are not being held by any registered body. They are not registered workers. They essentially are holders.
Yep.
Holders of space so you can do the work yourself and introspect and go in. And so there's always a choice. There's always a choice in what way you go and where you come back to.
Sure.
And so in terms of the way that they play out, if you choose the registered birth worker system, then essentially you are focusing on the physical, the testing, the checking, the concern with risk.
That's still under a certain umbrella.
Yeah.
Of practice.
Yes.
And it can't go outside that either.
No.
Yep.
So no matter what, if you are registered, there is an aspect that you are registered by some form of governing body. You will not allow yourself to go outside of that.
Yep.
So if you are to choose that option, it is very important to understand what that option actually gives you.
Sure.
And being really aware that the focus is on the physical health of the baby first, the physical health of the mother second, and ensuring those two pieces come together and interplay together via checking the physical. Now, if you're looking towards the ancestral system, realistically, the whole care system is set up to help you and guide you back into yourself to understand those pieces. It is also part of that support network that must trust the process of pregnancy.
So they have to trust you plus the process itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
You cannot be supported by an on this ancestral systemic choice.
Yep.
You cannot be supported by someone who doesn't actually believe in the process of pregnancy and the process that comes after.
Yeah.
And so that is when you have this care model, it is all about building on your own intuition with the lived experience of elders and lived experience of those supporting you.
So probably not a uni degree that goes with that.
Say that again?
It's probably not a university degree that goes with that.
No, because it's a felt knowledge.
It's a
lived experience and a felt experience. It was pretty cool. Recently I connected, with my grandmother, who shared with me that my great-great-grandmother was essentially the supporter of birth for those that followed the ancestral system back in the 1800s, essentially. And what she would be was that person that was essentially the supporter of the birth. So traditionally on this land or country, the Indigenous Aboriginal people would have their grandmother as their support to walk them through pregnancy. And I found out that my great-great-grandmother was sort of stepping in for that as that support person because it was during the times where colonization, brutality was rife. And so she would step in as that person. So now, being where I am and who I am, I have that ancestral lineage and that deep trust and knowing that has been passed down and passed down and passed down through that thread of life. And I think that, to me, which I only found out like 3 months ago, is the biggest or deepest reminder that, I mean, for me personally, it feels really fitting and telling, and I had no idea, but I always have trusted birth. I've always trusted pregnancy, and I've also always trusted creation. And in that, it's not just about, you know, I think there's a lot of fear around an early birth. There's a lot of fear around that this baby mightn't survive. And from the minute it's conceived, people have that fear. And for me, I've always found the softening in this idea that if life is meant to life, it will. And if that is not meant to be, then I trust that. I have no question on that. I deeply trust life. I deeply trust that creation may come and go faster than I had hoped and had planned and was expecting. But I also trust that. Because if there is something that is going on that was not meant to continue on this path in that moment, then I would like it to do it as it's meant to, rather than stress myself out about that. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't absolutely honour the life that wasn't or that didn't transform into being an actual human baby. And so that is something that's really important, and the spirituality of that and that energetics of that, but also knowing that life lives and then life also dies. We are all on that trajectory.
Yeah.
And nothing is set in stone.
I think I don't know if it's a misconception, but a lot of people think life and death are opposites.
Okay.
But they're not. Birth and death are opposites. Life just is. In the middle.
That's cool.
So we have this, I guess, preconceived thought that things should go a certain way. And if it doesn't fit that model, then we need someone probably wearing some kind of white and that has a degree, and that we can't get by without that. We are conditioned to worship that kind of, not profession, but that status, the priests, the doctors, the wise men. We're conditioned very early to take their word as gospel. And I'm yet to meet a doctor, actually, who will tell me about the physiology of pregnancy.
Yeah.
And that shocked the hell out of me. But I don't really work with, you'd obviously work with a lot more pregnant women than I would. I'd be more do the odd sort of treatment type thing, but more the strength training. Yeah.
I think I just want to touch on what you just said, the physiology of pregnancy, and something that I have absolutely been and will continue to deep dive into and share is this the idea that we are so stuck on the physical.
Yeah.
We are so obsessed with the physical. We go and do these scans. So if you choose the medical system of registered practitioners, if that's your care form, like your care choice, then you are going to be focused on the physical. You're going to be focused on your physical outcomes. You're going to be focused on the baby's physical growth, physically aware of the positioning of placenta, the positioning of the baby. Everything is just physical. And we are a whole human. There is, and the human is actually forming within inside that womb. So if our only focus, and that is essentially that system of care is only focused on that, they are also focused potentially to some extent on the mental, emotional load of the pregnant woman.
Okay.
But it's very, you have to be very unwell psychologically to actually dip into that support.
You're going to be pretty on the way.
Yeah, and you don't really want to be in that spot in the first place. So it's not real. It's a bit of a debilitating position that you have to be in to then for them to actually, but there is a piece of that. Now I won't discredit that. There is a piece of that. However, when it comes to traversing pregnancy, it is not just the physical. Your baby's forming inside of your womb. And I think we touched on a little bit how womb trauma, that is going to become very well known soon enough. It is already known. It is just not well known, or spoken about, because there is an aspect of guilt in that, you know, and mothers feel a lot of guilt.
Sure.
And so, or some mothers feel a lot of guilt. And so therefore we don't want to add extra, you know, we don't want to put spice on that.
There's enough going on.
Totally. And the thing is, when you're working from a system that is based upon testing and checking and telling you that potentially this is not okay, actually there's a heightened risk for you because your family member has some sort of disease. There's a heightened risk for you because of this, because we can see there's a physical issue over here. There's a heightened risk for you to have, and this is where that mental stuff comes in. Oh, your mum had postnatal depression, so there's a heightened risk that you're going to have that too. There's absolutely, that's just bogus, because at the end of the day, there might be a piece of that. However, if you pass that on to a pregnant woman, she's in an activated zone. She's going to take that and run with it. She's going to believe and hold on to that.
Yeah.
And so from my perspective, the thing that I focus on through pregnancy is not about the physical. Physical obviously is important. Then I come to you and complain like I've got some physical issue, help me. But it's like, or any other clinician, right? I might go to osteochiro, acupuncturist. Like I'm going to go and source someone that if I need to lean out of myself, if I can look in and go, hey, you know what? You've been running around like a headless chook. You've been stressing out about something. An emotion is coming up, but you haven't had time to actually feel into that or land into that or connect to that. So that's big. That's going to have a massive interplay into how you're feeling right now, and you haven't had the opportunity to work it through. Okay, there's your issue. Just go in and take some moment. Take a breather. Have a good sleep.
Yeah.
Have a rest. But the thing that we miss is that our baby is not just growing physically, it is growing mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And if we think of pregnancy from this perspective, we can think of it that at conception, so this is just an idea, but from my perspective, at conception is when the soup comes in. Mum and dad's soup pours in, all the pieces of that, bang, here you are. Now, throughout pregnancy, that energy that brought, that is you now, that is the cells that are dividing and creating life. They've been given the curriculum as such, but it needs to transform and transmute. So the way I like to think of it is as these, as you traverse pregnancy, there's an activation and maturation of each organ, TCM perspective.
Yeah.
And every time one of those, so each month that organ comes online. Each trimester, there's a specific aspect happening. So in that initial trimester, we're actually looking at that kind of it's sort of like, we could say it's like the shadows. It's sort of, and I think the reason we could be this way, I mean, I'm sure there's some more succinct, beautiful way that has been written in text, but it's like, because it's mum and dad, it's that initial soup. It's that initial soup, like all the sediment is kind of hasn't settled yet. And so we get all the shadow, probably all the lessons, like the lessons. So the shadow in Chinese medicine is the lessons we're here to learn, and we call that Po, and we say that there's 7 of them.
Okay.
Recently, I've been talking it like splinters. So there's splinters inside of us that eventually will come to the surface, come back and go. And until we're ready, that same thing will play out over and over again until we're ready to pull it out.
Does that correlate to the chakras, those 7 lessons?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not informed.
Okay.
We could find out. It may or may not be. I'm sure there's definitely aspects to the numbers 7, 10, because essentially, So we have, in that first trimester, we're essentially allowing the soup of mum and dad, the curriculum to come in, and that's sort of those first 3 to 4 months, they are creating the human that is, okay, here you are. They're still, from a TCM perspective, they are a spiritual being. They aren't quite in the body yet. They are energetically here. There's a physical forming, but it's more the work is in the spirit. It's in that spirit realm. It's more in the curriculum, landing and getting identified.
Yep.
Then we move into the second trimester, which is about what we call the Shen, and it's the big Shen. And that's the soul, like the soul of the human becoming. And
so the 5 elements, is that like the...
So the Shen, the little Shen is correlated to the heart.
Yep.
Big Shen is like the soul. So it is that Shen.
Yeah.
But it's like encompasses all of them.
Okay.
Does that make
sense?
sense?
So it's like the soul, it's almost like the soul spirit steps itself down into becoming a human.
Yes, becoming more informed.
Yeah. Informed.
Right. So it's like, so that second trimester, we start to actually, it's still spirit. It's like that transition from spirit to physical is happening.
Okay.
In this lineage.
Yeah.
And so then we have we traverse those aspects of the pregnancy, and we have the opportunity to, the same in the first trimester, but we have it in the second trimester, to the opportunity to lean into, okay, what's, say for example, we have an organ, for example, is the spleen. So that's our digestive organ. It's both the earth element is within that second trimester.
Yeah.
And so we want to, by digesting well. So we want whatever information we're taking in, we want to digest it and clear it out. And we want to be really focused on that as the mother, so that we're able to move this stuff through us, rather than it just sedimenting around.
Yeah.
And so from my perspective, what ends up happening just at the beginning, which isn't, it might actually be right around, might be right around spleen time, is when we go in for this big 20-week scan and get the physical map of the body and know whether or not our baby's got issues or is fine or is, and they do this big hour-long scan to identify all the physical problems, potentials, or that it's,
Is that where you've got like a X percentage it's going to be like this or like that? Or, sorry, X percentage of risk of...
No, that would be done at 10 weeks. That's
10
sort
weeks,
of like the, it's either a blood test or a scan, depending on what you do. These days they do always do blood work as well. And they're identifying whether, there's a few different options there.
Yeah.
You could do the NIPT, which is a paid blood test, which identifies any genetic abnormalities and the percentage of that. It's pretty accurate. It's also not 100%.
Well, no test can be, can it?
No. So you've got people, there's obvious experiences. Most people will, if they get a negative test result, they will make a judgment call on that.
Right.
On whether, okay, if that's a certain way, then I'm gonna either terminate this pregnancy or I'm going to accept the fate of this pregnancy. Either way, I know of people that have chosen to continue with the pregnancies after getting the kind of, this is your end, and the baby's been completely normal. Yeah,
I think the genetic thing is overplayed a lot. Like, people come to me today, they're say 40, 50, 60. I've got bad back or I've got high blood pressure because my nan had it. Absolute horseshit.
Yeah.
I think, if I remember right, it's 3 to 5% are actually can be traced back to genetics.
Yeah.
So you've still got 97 to 95% chance of not inheriting that.
Yeah, and being really conscious that epigenetics is the way forth of understanding, and that is what this sort of is. That is where I think is so powerful of seeing ancient traditions actually going, hey, we're trumping what you're saying right now.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you have the power to adjust and change, but you have to think about the soup. There is an aspect of the soup that was given to you. However, if we think of it from a non-physical form, and we think about the Po being the shadow or the lessons to learn as you move through this life, well, then you move them through before they become a physical ailment.
Yeah.
You actually have to do that work.
But even if you, let's say you've got the dreaded whatever, then it's not what you are. It's not even who you are. It's what you have. It's a part of you. A piece of you.
In that moment.
In that moment. So whether you give that power or not is also up to the individual.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I just want to get through these trimesters. So we move into the second trimester being more that soul carnation, that soul entering in. To an extent, it's already there, but it's more about it's more about the heart.
Yep.
Not the heart in such, but the whole being, that spiritual being becoming form. And then by the end of the second trimester, we have, throughout those organs in those trimesters, in that second trimester, essentially is setting us up. And if the mother is aware, she can actually go in and be like, okay, yeah, you know what? The lung is related to sadness and grief. What is it that I'm carrying around that I don't actually want to imprint onto my child? I have an opportunity now because I'm in this heightened state of actually adjusting that curriculum, adjusting it in a way that here's the curriculum, here's my soup with my partner that we've put together. But let's have a look at that because I'm now maturing their lung. So let me mature mine. And by me doing that work, I am helping them do their work. Actually, in essence, taking away the work that they have to do. Because in time, that splinter that may have been like a big life lesson that they will have to learn, I might be able to actually adjust that now. So that in the time when they're actually doing the work in that, it's like, okay, that feels really hard and heavy, but it's slightly different because my mum did some work on her own shit that she didn't need to pass on to me. And then we move into the hun, which is the third trimester. And the third trimester in TCM is all about obviously slowing down and really getting clear on what we need to eliminate and let go of as we move and traverse towards the trust of the end game and the end.
D-Day.
Yeah, the birth. Yep. So it's that is the hun is kind of like where we've become physical. So from at the end of the second trimester to into the third, the body and the baby are now one. The baby, the soul, the spirit, and the physical are now interlinked. Yeah. The baby now hears you. Yeah. The baby now is aware of what you're feeling. What you feel, they feel. Hence why that third trimester should be really focused on slowing down. Yeah. Landing into that more and more and being aware of okay, I need to slow down now because what I need to be focused on is trusting my body to grow my human and to birth my baby. And that is one of the hardest things to do when you are traversing a medicalized pregnancy system because that's when the pointy end's coming.
Did you ever go medical?
I had a registered home birth midwife for my first baby, and it was magic. She was amazing. She was a really fantastic human. Had I known then what I know now, I may have chosen differently. However, in that moment, I felt like one of the first people to home birth, in my circle. I didn't know another person who had a home birth, let alone a birth without it, without the medical system. Yeah. I'd never even encountered that. And before I fell pregnant, I was doing my master's thesis on postpartum. And in doing that, I met women online they had joined to be part of my study, and they were birthing at home. And that was really interesting because it was just even talking to them about, I'd worked for eight years at that point with women, and I had watched them tread the systemic, the medical system in their birthing process. And I was like, I knew I wasn't going to do that. Yeah. Because you walk in a way, they're not loving on you. And that's the thing is we're missing that link, right? Because we're meant to have our mothers and our grandmothers showing us the way, loving us into that process, looking at us and saying, darling, you've got this. Yeah. And when I spoke to my grandmothers, they tended to do that. They were like, birth is a moment in time. You don't want to set up for the birth if you're not setting up for the postpartum. So I think that kind of encouraged me to really get focused on the pregnancy and the postpartum, and know that birth was going to happen if I did those two things.
Yeah.
And so, as I've traversed this pregnancy and my second pregnancy was felt, it was like quite tumultuous, but it was a very powerful process of trust and leaning in and introspection. During my second pregnancy, we were going through COVID, and we were going through the lockdowns and the kind of lockdowns for, different people, and the kind of like, will you, won't you take a medication? And it was a really big time for me personally to actually traverse that, but I just had to. It was almost like a propulsion inwards. I had to go in, I had to introspect, and I had to figure out what was important for me.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of that, like a bit of a kick into more and more of this sort of kind of birth within the ancestral system, which is all about connecting to self. But it's not about doing it alone. It's not about thinking that you can just like do pregnancy and do birth and it's just a blip in time. It's not about like, that's, I guess, if that's you're hearing from me, that's not what I'm trying to say. What I want people to understand is that you need to be held and revered through the process. You need to feel like you are enough because somehow life came to you. Somehow this baby chose you. And if you don't keep choosing yourself time and time again, that's going to have an impact on the whole. And you are the next generation. You are preparing the next generation.
Literally.
So let's do it well if we can. And if we have an opportunity to. And that's not to say that if you have done what you can, then that's enough. Of course it's going to be enough.
Yeah.
Your child chose this moment in time. It chose you.
Yeah.
And so everything that you're doing is enough. However, if you want to do more, there's an opportunity for that. And I think that's the piece that is so powerful when we feel loved on and we feel revered in our choice and we feel connected to. And that's one of the hardest things as someone who is a registered birth worker. No matter what they do, they probably want to love on you. But like we know, a doctor can't love you like your mum can.
Yeah.
And they're not going to sit there and cook you a chicken soup and make sure that you're in bed and you're resting if you are unwell. They're going to find the only tool that they have, and that's generally pharmaceutical. That's what they have as an option. They're going to give you the best option that they have. And that's not to say that they are a bad person in any way. That's just their option. But if we keep coming back and keep looking into ourselves and introspecting into ourselves, we'll find the answers in there because we have the ancestral twine already. We have all of these pieces from the womb that we've then carried through. We have it all there. And it's with that love, being loved on and supported, that it empowers our own belief in trust. And if we don't trust, we have an opportunity to feel more trust and to feel more belief in ourselves. And I think that is something that is just like hands down the most important thing. Because when it comes to, problems through pregnancy or like ailments that I see specifically through pregnancy, a lot of the time I can just come in and be like, what are you traversing right now? How's work? How's like, what are you playing with in your mental zone that you're disconnecting from your emotional, that is absolutely not on the page with your spiritual?
Yeah.
And is completely, all of that's happening outside of the womb.
It often just comes back to their story.
Yeah.
They're telling themselves.
Yeah.
So I would work with pregnant women, obviously, very differently to you because I don't really see that many.
Okay.
But I remember when I was a PT and a strength coach, there were questions that I would ask every single, if not every day, at least every session. And even when a pregnant client comes in, I will ask these questions. So this is probably for more the pregnant, but also any coach, therapist, trainer who has a pregnant client to get this information. And even if they don't, I would give it to their partner and be in contact with that partner because they can often answer the questions as well. Just for me, they're really critical.
Yeah, let's go. What are they?
Question, I'll ask you these because you're
pregnant.
Kind of. Have you experienced any morning sickness today?
Not today, no.
How did you pull up after our last session?
Pretty good.
How have you been sleeping?
I sleep well if I don't get woken by a child.
Okay. This probably doesn't apply to you. Have you been to the doctors recently?
No.
If so, what's new?
Nothing from the doctor, but I have introspected recently.
Oh, good.
And there's quite a lot of...
so your inner doctors?
And my inner doctors. And as I traverse into this moment in time, I'm realising there's quite a few little emotional things coming up that I'm working on and connecting on, and they're related to my relationship. So that feels really, really good to be aware of and allow through. So, yeah, that's probably my own inner doctor doing its work.
We talk about that now? Or
no, you go on. What's the next question?
How's your nutrition, your hydration, your foundation pillars been?
Nutrition, I'm pretty good at 3 meals a day, but I'm feeling like I want to add in a fourth. Yep. I'm feeling like there's a bit of a snack before bed that's important. So I've been doing a bit of cheese and sometimes some goat's yogurt with some granola or like oats and fruit.
Yep.
And then hydration I'm working on more and more, but I've been having more coconut water, and then I've been doing like back onto the like lemon salt waters.
Okay. And how do you feel on those?
Good when I drink those, more like much more hydrated than I had been.
Is that more of an AM thing or a PM thing?
Through the day thing.
Through the day, okay. Any headaches or dizziness,
No.
lightheadedness, etc.? No. Must have had a good manual therapist.
Maybe.
Any changes to mood, stress, lifestyle, etc.? Has anything in your external world like significantly changed?
I probably would say there has been some stress, but it's more my own doing, and so I am doing. What, it was you? No.
All about balance.
Not today. No, but it's been more my own doing. It's been my own pressures, and now I've like accepted that is not for now, and I need to really get back onto my pregnancy journey, and that feels good. Okay. So sorted there.
So with those questions, I've now got a total behind the scenes view of what I'm also working with.
Okay, so you can go through what I said and respond to what you say.
Well, now I've got the
picture.
Yeah. So instead of in the perfect world, I would have sent you home with maybe a full-on health appraisal questionnaire for you to fill out, but that takes time, which I can imagine. First time would be all right, but I'd like to do it each trimester just to track how things are.
Okay.
However, with these questions, I've got that kind of summary.
Okay.
And so I would maybe emphasis more next time on the emotional check-in with the nutrition thing, just because that's going to change dramatically throughout the whole process.
Yeah.
And an optional 8th question, what's been your weirdest craving?
I just don't think I'm weird, so I don't think there's any weirdness going on. I don't actually have any cravings.
That's really boring.
Sorry. I haven't had any cravings specifically.
I had a client once.
What? You go?
Crave soap. She wanted to eat soap.
There's something about that. Do you know what that means?
No.
It means something.
A couple of years ago.
You should have had that prepped, because there's something specific about a pregnant woman eating soap. It's the same as not the same, but oh gosh, what is that? No, that's annoying me.
So you're saying I should have had it prepped, or
yeah, you should have it prepped.
Is this like a kettle black thing?
I mean, don't throw the soap out there and then like I'm trying to figure out what it means. There is a deficiency in something, and that is the reason that they want soap. There's also that's really cool. I would just say, and I just want to touch on this before we wrap it up, but just that you have so many options when it comes to pregnancy, and I think it is a time that you should feel honoured I'm not talking to you, Matt. I'm talking to the women out there that are listening. You should feel honored. So if you are a partner of a pregnant woman, remember that she's traversing something so much greater than you can ever imagine, that she is actually holding the miracle of life inside of her womb, and it is growing day by day. So if you really want to support the next generation and support your children, you should support your partner. And that is like in the ways that she needs to be supported.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because the typical male brain...
Yes, we know that male brains do not function in the way that female brains function, don't we, Matt?
The male brain... I don't like your tone. The male brain just wants to fix shit.
Yes.
And there's going to be bumps along the way.
Absolutely.
With stuff. All the guy wants to do is for everything to be fine.
Absolutely. And this is why the medical system is so powerful and so the main school of thought, mainly because obviously things can go wrong, and that's why that's there, and that's great. But the fear aspect that occurs for men.
Because we can't control it.
No.
We like to be, not necessarily we like to be in control all the time. Some do.
Yeah.
But we just want to fix stuff.
Yeah.
So if it's out of our control, we can't fix it.
Absolutely.
So that sends us in a bit of a tizzy.
Totally.
But it's important to realise that she's going to go where the guy just cannot go.
No.
He can't. He can't. He wants to, and he wants to make it as peaceful and fixable as possible, but it's just not going to happen. No. What the guy can do is be that support.
Yeah.
If she wants something, do it.
Yeah.
If she wants something to eat, make her something to eat. If she wants someone out of the house, get them out of the house.
Yeah.
That's what the guy can do.
And I think it's really important to remember that pregnancy sets you up, or preconception starts it, but pregnancy is you're in it, and it is setting you up for the future of not only your child, but for the mothering journey. And a huge transition piece is obviously birth, which we'll touch on next time, but being so conscious of the power that you as the partner, the birth partner has on being that rock, being that stable, loving, honouring person.
Because it's often archetypally, the mother archetype is really getting a hold. And then for the guy, it's often the warrior. But if that warrior has a very, very strong child archetype, that's when a lot of conflict can happen.
Yeah, and I see that time and time again in the clinic where a mother has chosen a certain direction for herself, a route for herself that feels powerful and empowering, and her partner hasn't quite found the way to get on board. And I think that is one of the most important things as a birth partner, no matter what system of care you choose, is that you are her rock and you support her. And that is probably the hardest thing to do in a medical system, because you're not her support. You are giving your energy outwards. And that is one of the things, if I just bring it back, it's an external care system or an internal care system. And the internal is always focused on the mother and then what the mother wants and needs. And just being really conscious that a lot of the signs and symptoms that come up through pregnancy, a lot of them are quite normal. So if we're getting, towards the end of pregnancy, we're starting to get heartburn, well, that makes perfect sense because the baby's really pressing on all those organs. However, there are things that we can do to soften that, because there's also things that stress coming up, especially as Western women, where we're a bit stressed out. Like I know personally, when I'm like getting to this end pointy part, I'm like, oh, you know what? All I want to do is do all my things, and I just don't want to be pregnant right now because I'm feeling so creative and so inspired. And then I've got to turn around and be like, actually, no, like you're pregnant. That is the number one priority. And I think in our world, we are getting pushed to that limit. We're like, oh yeah, no, you take your break at 38 weeks so you have enough time with the baby so you can get back to work as soon as possible. Right. And the system is not set up for mothering. And we're going to talk about that in a few episodes' time, I think, on this same journey. But if you are pregnant, you are powerful beyond measure. And if you are traversing a pregnancy with your partner, you are also you should be the most intimate, loving person towards her in all the ways. And if you can't find that, now is the time to do the work. will be slapped to you in the face if you don't do it before the child comes. But this is when when it's still in the non-physical realm, you have the power to actually really inspire that and to create all the things. So enjoy your pregnancy, know that you are powerful, and know that you have a choice.
Her great spirit.
Peace.
You've been listening to The Wizard and the Priestess. Thanks for stopping by. Stay connected and be open.